Gibbs free energy is a very important part of passing the AP Biology exam. It is actually very simple math if you know how to interpret the results you receive. This is the equation for Gibbs free energy. It is delta G equals delta H minus T delta S. And let's start with the units for all of these. As units are a very important part of any mathematical equation, let's start with the units for Gibbs free energy. The delta G is in kilojoules per mole. The delta H is also in kilojoules per mole. The T, or temperature, is in Kelvin. And the delta S is in joules per mole kilogram. The next major step is to convert the Celsius you're normally given to kelvins. And it's a very easy step. It's just basically Celsius plus 273. And that equals the answer in kelvins. Now let's do a very simple example. The example I'm going to give is if you have 25 degrees Celsius, that would end up being 298 degrees in Kelvin. This is also the standard heat for a reaction. Now that converting Celsius to Kelvin should be pretty simple for you, let's do another example of the Gibbs free energy equation. This is the conversion of ATP to ADP in inorganic phosphorus. It's a reaction that occurs at 20 degrees Celsius. The change in heat for this reaction is 19,070 calories, and the change in entropy is 90 calories per kilogram. The first step, as previously, is to convert the Celsius into Kelvin, and that is done by adding 273 to the 20 Celsius, and that gets you 293 Kelvin. Next, you want to multiply this Kelvin by the delta S to get 26,370, and that will then be plugged back into the original delta G equation for the T delta S, and you plug the delta H in for where the delta H goes, so that ends up being 19,070 minus 26,370. This results in a delta G value of negative 7,300 calories. As easy as all that was, it is actually not the most important part of the Gibbs free energy. Interpreting this data is actually the most important part. And the best way to interpret it is by taking the delta G and comparing it to 0. If delta G is greater than 0, it represents an endergonic reaction, or a non-spontaneous reaction. And if delta G is less than 0, it represents an exergonic reaction, or a spontaneous reaction. This is something you'll just have to memorize, and it'll be very important for your test. Another way to interpret Gibbs free energy is to take the delta H and compare that to 0. If delta H is greater than 0, it's endothermic, which is a reaction that absorbs heat. Or if it is a delta H that is less than 0, it's an exothermic reaction that expels heat.